Welcome back to our channel, where we dive deep into the daily drama, the shocking twists, and the psychological warfare that makes our favorite daytime soap opera an absolute masterpiece. Today is a brilliant day to unpack what might just be the most exquisitely chaotic sequence of events we have witnessed in Genoa City all year. Brace yourselves, because the writers have truly outdone themselves, crafting a scene dripping with dramatic irony, psychological tension, and sheer audacity that feels like a masterclass in character collision. We are talking about the surreal convergence of Matt Clark, Kane Ashby, and Phyllis Summers at the Genoa City Athletic Club. Let us begin by dissecting the sheer audacity of Matt Clark. This is a man who recently survived a dessert explosion, orchestrated a fake death that left his former accomplice Sienna Bacall drowning in a pool of terrified tears, and silently infiltrated Sharon Newman's cottage to leave a bloody death threat on her mirror. Yet, how does he make his grand return to the social epicenter of Genoa City? He strolls into the GCEC looking like a man on a leisurely vacation. He casually sits down at the bar, orders a cold beer, and mildly asks the bartender if the establishment gets a lot of regular patrons. The bartender, entirely oblivious to the fact that he is serving a phantom, simply pours the drink and continues his shift. To understand Matt Clark's behavior, we must delve into the mind of a highly functioning sociopath. While Sienna Bacall is practically suffocating on her own panic just 3 blocks away, convinced her horrific past has finally caught up with her, Matt is peacefully enjoying his second sip of beer. He is not hiding in an alleyway, he is sitting in the brightest room in town. Why? Because Matt's ultimate addiction is absolute control. By sitting at the GCEC, the nexus of Genoa City's elite, he reclaims his territory. He observes the ecosystem of his enemies before he strikes. This casual beer is his victory lap before the real carnage begins, a chilling display of his emotional detachment from the trauma he inflicts. Into this meticulously observed environment walks Kane Ashby, carrying the weight of the world on his shoulders. Kane takes a seat, completely unaware he is breathing the same air as the devil himself. Matt, ever the curious predator, leans over and casually asks Kane if they have met before. Kane, whose life is currently a waking nightmare, dismisses the inquiry with a curt rejection. In Kane's mind, he is a man on the brink of losing everything. He has just been wrongfully arrested, framed by Victor and Victoria Newman's malicious AI-generated evidence, and is facing the terrifying reality that his incarceration is indefinitely delaying a life-saving bone marrow transplant for Malcolm Winters. Kane brushes Matt off and walks over to a table to meet with Holden Novak, Malcolm's devastated biological son. Kane's dismissal of Matt is a profound moment of dramatic irony. Here is Kane, desperately fighting the invisible ghost of Victor's framing plot, completely failing to recognize the physical monster sitting inches away. Kane's psychology is consumed by a desperate need for redemption and a paralyzing fear of failure. He promised Lily Winters he would save her father, and Victor's ruthless corporate warfare stripped him of that ability. Kane is drowning in his own tragedy, his vision narrowed to the immediate crisis of Malcolm's failing health and Holden's overwhelming grief. He cannot see Matt Clark because his mind is fully occupied by the cruelty of the Newman family. But the true masterpiece of this scene begins with the arrival of Phyllis Summers. Phyllis bursts through the doors of the GCEC carrying the frantic, toxic energy of a woman cursed by every man in town. She is a cornered lioness, bleeding from 100 corporate and personal wounds. Victor Newman has successfully engineered a digital frame-up so flawless that even her brilliant attorney, Michael Baldwin, is sweating under the pressure. She is out on bail, facing the very real threat of federal prison, and has watched her entire workforce at the Summers conglomerate abandon her. Her own son, Daniel, is in a state of sheer panic. Phyllis enters the club looking for the only reliable solace she has left, a strong drink to numb the agonizing reality of her collapsing empire. Before Phyllis can even order that drink, the universe delivers another brutal blow in the form of Kane Ashby. Seeing the woman he believes is responsible for his current misery, Kane leaps up from his table. He is completely blinded by his own pain and the false narrative Victor has spun. Kane loudly declares that he will never forgive her, essentially throwing her out of his orbit. Phyllis, never one to back down from a fight, fires back that he is just desperate for paying clients. But Kane delivers the final, crushing blow on his way out the door, turning back to label her with a single, devastating word: poison. It is a public execution of her character, a harsh summary of how Genoa City currently views her. Kane storms out, leaving Phyllis to absorb the sting of this humiliation, and who is sitting just 3 feet away, absorbing every single syllable of this spectacular meltdown: Matt Clark. The entire explosive dialogue takes place within arm's reach of a man who makes his living exploiting the vulnerabilities of broken people. Matt stands at the bar, memorizing the interaction like a theater critic watching a mesmerizing tragedy unfold. He sees Kane's desperation, but more importantly, he sees Phyllis's raw and shielded pain. For a psychological predator like Nat, this is an all-you-can-eat buffet. He recognizes immediately that Phyllis is an outcast, a woman vibrating with defensive anger and deep-seated insecurities. He watches her take her seat at the bar, watches her complain to the bartender about Kane, and realizes the universe just handed him the ultimate toy. Phyllis sitting at that bar, ranting to a bartender who is paid to pretend to care, is a heartbreaking portrait of isolation. She is fiercely independent, yet desperately lonely. In my opinion, this is how Phyllis is protecting herself from pain, by projecting a loud, abrasive, victimized persona. She creates a smokescreen that hides her profound terror of going back to prison and losing her children. She complains about Kane because it is easier to be angry at a man in a bar than it is to face the terrifying, omnipotent wrath of Victor Newman. Her anger is her armor. If she stops yelling, if she stops fighting, the silence will force her to confront the reality that she is entirely alone, backed into a corner with no escape route. She needs an audience, she needs validation, and she needs someone to tell her that she is not the villain of this story. Enter Matt Clark with the greatest opening line of the year. Having stared at her since the altercation ended, Matt leans over and tells Phyllis Summers that she has main character energy. It is a psychological masterstroke. It is the exact phrase, the precise combination of words, that Phyllis's starving ego desperately needs to hear. Matt does not offer her pity, nor does he judge her for the public screaming match. Instead, he elevates her. He validates her grandiose sense of self. By calling her the main character, he instantly validates her internal narrative that the world is happening to her, that her struggles are epic, and that she is the fascinating center of the universe. It is a calculated, brilliant manipulation from a man who knows exactly how to disarm a defensive, narcissistic personality. The result is instantaneous and catastrophic. Phyllis Summers, currently out on bail, facing federal charges, and fighting a war against the most powerful family in town, looks at this charming stranger and completely drops her guard. Instead of questioning why a random man is feeding her ego, she leans into it. She begins to spill her guts, recounting the sordid history of Genoa City as if delivering a sacred sermon. She tells him she practically lives at the GCC. She mocks Kane for reinventing himself only to revert to his weak old self. She is monologuing to the very monster who recently drugged Nick Newman with tainted fentanyl and terrorized Sharon, entirely oblivious to the lethal danger sitting next to her. She feels seen, giving a master manipulator a front row seat to the vulnerabilities of the town's elite. But the crowning jewel of this bizarre interaction is Matt's subsequent admission. As Phyllis pours out her soul, Matt casually drops a bombshell. He does not remember who he is. He plays the amnesia card. Now, is he truly suffering from memory loss due to the head trauma he sustained in the desert? Or is this merely another layer of his sociopathic deception? Given that he previously asked a waitress for directions to the GCC using his membership card, it is highly likely that Matt retains enough of his dark intellect to know exactly what he is doing. Amnesia is the perfect cover. It renders him a blank slate, a harmless figure in need of guidance. It masks his predatory nature behind a veil of vulnerability. Matt Clark is using it to embed himself into the fabric of Genoa City without raising a single alarm. Any rational person, upon hearing a stranger in a bar claim they have no memory of their identity, might excuse themselves, call the authorities, or at least tread carefully. But Phyllis Summers is not a rational person, she is a desperate one. Instead of running for the nearest exit and inadvertently saving herself by calling Sharon or Nick, Phyllis decides that this is the perfect time to make a new friend. The amnesiac man and the woman with absolutely no boundaries are now officially a pair. Phyllis sees a man who has no preconceived notions of her, no knowledge of her crimes, and no loyalty to Victor Newman. She sees a clean slate upon which she can project her own narrative. She is adopting a stray dog, completely unaware that she has just invited a rabid wolf into her inner circle. This entire sequence is a testament to the absolute brilliance of the writing team. They have taken two entirely separate storylines, the corporate war involving Victor Zay and the psychological thriller of Matt Clark's return, and crashed them together in the most unexpected way possible. It is a collision of genres. You have Phyllis, drowning in a corporate espionage plot, suddenly tethering herself to a man who belongs in a horror movie. The dramatic irony is thick enough to cut with a knife. Every time Phyllis smiles at Matt, the audience screams at their screens, knowing the sheer magnitude of the violence this man is capable of unleashing. The writers have perfectly aligned Phyllis's emotional desperation with Matt's predatory opportunism, creating a dynamic that is deeply terrifying. As we look toward the future of Genoa City, the implications of this new alliance are staggering. Matt Clark is now firmly planted in the social center of town, armed with the intimate secrets and grievances of Phyllis Summers. He is no longer just a ghost haunting Sharon's mirrors, he is an active player in the daytime drama, hiding in plain sight. When the truth finally comes to light, when Nick, Sharon, and Noah realize that the monster they fear is having drinks with Phyllis at the GCC, the fallout will be apocalyptic. For now, we are left to marvel at the twisted beauty of this interaction. A sociopath with no memory and a queen with no kingdom, sitting together at a bar, plotting their next moves. It is soap opera perfection, a psychological dance of manipulation and vulnerability that proves, once again, why we simply cannot look away.